Hi, Simon here for your analog audio design. Today I want to present to you Flow 3, a variable state filter with simultaneous 2-pole low-pass, 2-pole bandpass and 2-pole high-pass outputs. Flow 3 has a built-in decay envelope with a trigger input here. You can let this envelope affect the frequency of the filter by adjusting the range knob. This can be positive as well as negative. You set the initial frequency with the knob here. This is like your regular frequency knob on any filter. The resonance goes into self-oscillation and you get 10 volt peak-to-peak quadrature sine waves from these three outputs. They are each 90 degrees out of phase with the previous one. There's also a built-in envelope follower for whatever you send into the signal input. You engage this envelope follower by switching this switch into the auto mode. Both the decay envelope and the CV signal generated by the envelope follower are available from this output here. This output is always a positive signal between 0 and 12 volts. You adjust the slew rate of this envelope follower with the slider as well. Of course, in good your analog fashion, you have CV control over just about everything. There's a frequency input that you can use to modulate the frequency of the filter. You can also send in sequences because the filter tracks 1 volt per octave very well. You can also send in negative CVs here to use Flow 3 as a slew limiter or as a quadrature sine wave LFO. There's a modulation input for the resonance as well as the decay parameter. Let me show you a few things that you can do with Flow 3 because, well, it's quite a lot actually. You can use it as a state variable filter. You can also use it as a kick drum voice. I'll show you how in the video. Thanks to a Linkwitz-Riley response of the filter, you can use the 2-pole low pass and the 2-pole high pass as complementary outputs to use Flow 3 as a crossover. More about that later in the video as well. You can ping the filter by sending a short trigger into the input here. You can use it as a sine wave or as a sine LFO. You can also just use it as a CV generator for decay envelopes or the envelope extracted from whatever signal you send in. Let me walk you through a few of Flow 3's uses. Let's do a few filter sweeps. First, I've connected a saw wave output from cycle 5 to the signal input on Flow 3. We are currently monitoring the 2-pole low pass output here. Let's do a few sweeps. This was at minimum resonance. Let's increase the resonance. Let's increase it to about halfway. Let's increase it even more. Let's increase it to the maximum here. Let's now monitor the 2-pole bandpass output and do the same kind of sweeps. Now, to be at the same level, we need to increase the resonance a little bit. That's just the nature of the bandpass filter. Now let's listen to a few quick sweeps of the 2-pole high pass output. Right now, the filter is self-oscillating, which gives us quadrature sine outputs. I'm using two outputs here that are 90 degrees shifted, which gives us a nice stereo sound. You can hear that the filter tracks 1 volt per octave very precisely. You can even send in negative CVs to the frequency modulation input to get flow 3 into sub-audio rate territory and use it as a quadrature sine wave LFO. Of course, there's also modulation inputs for the resonance as well as the decay setting, which also affects the slew of the built-in envelope follower. A not unimportant side note about these filter outputs here: the two-pole low-pass and the two-pole high-pass are complementary, by which I mean if you mix them together, you will need to invert one of the two because these are 100 degrees out of phase. So if you invert one and mix them together, you essentially get the same signal out of the filter as you are sending in, which means that you can use flow 3 as a crossover to split the frequencies or spectrum of whatever you are sending in and process the low portion or the high portion of your sound source with separate processors. To demonstrate this, I'll send in this complex sound coming from Collide 4. And you'll notice if I connect this source through flow 3, at least with the resonance at the 0 position, we won't get any noticeable difference in sound even when I start turning or changing the frequency. And this is thanks to the Linkwitz-Riley filter response when we turn the resonance down. So let's monitor the sound through flow 3. You can hear there's a little bit of variation, but not a lot. Let's connect the high pass output through fold 6. And what's interesting about this is that we're only wavefolding the portion of the audio that's above the frequency set with the knob here. To demonstrate the envelope follower, I've made this quick patch where I'm using the saw output of cycle 5 through a VCA with an envelope. And I've sent this into flow 3 and we're monitoring the two-pole low-pass output. Now we can hear we're just using flow 3 as a filter at the moment. But if I engage the auto switch here, this engages the internal envelope follower. And if I then turn up the range knob here, you can hear that flow 3 starts reacting dynamically to our input signal. You can also choose to disengage the internal envelope follower and just send in a trigger signal to use the built-in decay envelope on flow 3, which in this case has a similar effect. Of course, you can also send in modulation to the decay parameter, and this will affect the length of your decay. Of course, at the same time, you can send in some frequency modulation, and you can even start modulating the resonance. By the way, you don't have to choose between using the built-in envelope follower and the built-in decay envelope. In fact, you can use both at the same time. Let's engage internal envelope follower and send in a trigger to the trigger input. You can use this, for example, to create accents. By by the way, we can also invert the effect of the envelope follower and decay envelope by just turning this attenuverter to the left. I already showed you that you can use flow 3 as a sine wave LFO, but if you send in negative CVs to the frequency modulation input, you can use it as a quadrature LFO with 3 outputs. Let's, for example, use this sine wave LFO to modulate frequency on filter 8. We can get really slow LFOs this way. You can even ping flow 3 when it's running at LFO rates if you set it on the verge of self-oscillation and send in a trigger to the signal input. And while we're talking about pinging flow 3, let me show you how to make quick and easy drum and percussion sounds by simply sending in one trigger. So flow 3 is still on the verge of self-oscillation. I removed the negative CV signal to the frequency modulation input, so we're just using the filter at audio rates. Let's send in a short trigger to the signal input. Let's turn off the envelope follower for now, and as you can hear, we get this short sound, which is called a filter ping. We can increase the length of this sound by increasing the resonance. And we can, of course, turn down the filter frequency, which results in a lower pitched sound. And if we now engage the internal envelope follower by switching this switch to the bottom position, and if we then increase the range, which determines how much the built-in envelope follower and the decay envelope affect the filter frequency, and this way we can create a pitch envelope for our sound, resulting in really nice kick drum sounds. By the way, when you connect the envelope output to something, you can just extract the envelope generated by flow 3 separately from its functionality as a filter. And when I turn the range knob, you can see that the signal from the envelope output is not affected by its setting. So even when you're using flow 3 as a filter, as long as you keep the range knob in the 0 position, you can still extract the decay envelope from the envelope output. And instead of using flow 3 as a state variable filter, as a quadrature, sine wave, VCO or LFO, as a self-contained drum or kick drum voice, or as a crossover, you can also just use the built-in envelope follower to extract a CV signal from any audio source that you send into it. Right now I'm sending in some sounds from Collide 4, and on the scope we can see the extracted envelope from the envelope output on flow 3. We can affect the slew of this envelope. We can make it a little bit more sluggish. we can also make it more snappy by turning down the decay here. We can also modulate this with CV, of course. And then we can use this CV signal to modulate anything around our rack. But let's just use it to control the pitch of Collide 4 here. So this was a quick first introduction to Flow 3, the autodynamic filter that you can use for a bunch load of things. See you next time. Bye.